Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. Hi, my name is Andrea and I'm a Hungarian graphic designer who is also a makeup enthusiast. Hence why this makeup look. Today's video is going to be a free look swamp palette with the Oden's X Angelica Nyquist Hela palette, which I already made a video about, which you can watch in one of the corners. It was a first impression though, so I've been trying this palette out since then, and I can confidently say it is amazing. I'm actually going to be showing you 5 looks in today's video because I've been pairing this palette also with my existing ones in my collection. I will also insert swatches that I did of this palette and comparing it to other existing palettes in my collection, because I realized that this palette has a lot of shades that I might already have in my collection, except on the multi-chromes because there's 2 in this palette, but a lot of the shades I already have and I already own in other palettes, so I just wanted to compare them. And to my surprise, they are quite different, but there are some duds, you know, which are just inevitably the same. But it makes sense for the color story, so I'm not blaming the palette. I just wanted to give you like a swatch comparison in case you're eyeing this palette but you're not sure about it. Maybe you have all these colors already in your collection and you want to make sure, you know, all that jazz. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into it. Okay, I'm going to look down to my computer to see the pictures, but I'm going to insert them for you in the video. The first look that I did with this palette was a two-toned yellow and purple look with some gems, which you've probably already seen if you've watched the previous video that I uploaded. I think I do say in that video what shades I used, but just in case I wanted to repeat them. So mainly the shimmers that I used were the 2 duochromes, double-sided and river, these 2 down here. I used Rebirth as my inner corner shade. I used Underworld, Moss, and then Suit. Then on my lower lash line I used Complete, which is a shimmery black. It is intense. It's actually what I have in my lower lash line today as well, because it's just so good. And I love the sparkle it has. But if you blend it enough, it can be used as a matte too, which is very versatile in my personal opinion. I wanted to show that this palette is really versatile because you can do really fun and extravagant looks, but you can still keep it natural. So the next look is a very natural look with this palette. I really tried to keep it simple. So the main shades that I used in my crease were Rebirth, Wolf, and then Decay. On my lower lash line are just Wolf and Decay, I think, and then I really packed Rebirth in my inner corner to just make it bright and powerful. And then what I have all over my lid is double-sided, obviously. I in love with this multi-chrome. I've pretty much used this shade for every fucking look I create with this palette. I just can't get enough of the multi-chromes here. It's so good. It is the selling point for this palette, but this color story is so cute. All right, and then I wanted to play a little bit with the greens next, because obviously this color story is pink and green. So the next look is primarily lime, obviously, because I've used 2 shimmers on my lid. It was probably Fluorescence and Golden Bridge, because I wanted to see the difference between them, but it's not a whole lot of difference because they just look the same on the lid. I used Rebirth in my inner corner, and then I pretty much stuck to the neutrals. I used Decay in my outer corner, I think Wolf in my crease, and Rebirth in my inner part of my lid. Then I have 2 other looks to show you, which is not purely using this palette. I mixed and matched some shades and I pulled out 2 of my other palettes. So the first look I created with this, and then my Nikki Tutorials palette by Beauty Bay. This is a very neutral look again, but I just adore the types of browns that are in this baby. Like, they are so fucking mesmerizing. It's kind of awkward to hold this palette up, so excuse me, but I mainly used 5 AM and then Mila, I think, in my crease and in my outer corner, pulling it out a little bit to make it like a winged shape because I just love it on me. And I think I used Rebirth in my inner corner and Wolf, blending it into Mila, but those were very similar. Like, I couldn't really tell the difference, so it's just a mix of both. But the brown 5 AM in the Nikki Tutorials palette is Still warmer than DK in this one, so that's why I pulled out that one and used that instead of DK, because I didn't want to make it too cool. Then the shimmers that you see on my lid are a mix of All In from the Nuki Tutorials palette and then double-sided, obviously. So double-sided is in the very inner corner of my eye, and then I used All In all over my lid. For the record, this is All In. I know it doesn't really show on camera, but this is a multi-chrome as well, and it has such a cool shift of brown to like a tealish mint green, and it's mesmerizing. I fucking love this shade. This is so good. And then the last look I created with this is like a winged eyeliner, and it's just green. It's just my element, and dare I say, it is my favorite look that I've ever created using these palettes together, because I used the Hela and I used my Shroud palette. It's Freaking Bats palette, which is a collaboration palette between Beauty Bean and Shroud also. So using these together created just the perfect look. It was so magical. I couldn't stop looking at myself, actually. It was so good. I used Handbook, this lime green shade, this shimmer, and paired it with double-sided from the Hela palette, and that made such a beautiful shift. Oh my god. I think double-sided, this multi-chrome, works best paired with greens. I might be biased, but hear me out. It is nice. It's very nice paired with like neutrals and oranges, because I wanted to show you today, like, this is double-sided on my lid and it works well with like pinks and purples as well, but I just adore using it with greens. It's the tits. And then I dipped into this green Ouroboros to blend out my other corner. I wouldn't say it was patchy, but it wasn't as impactful as, say, the pastels in this palette. So the dark mattes are not where this palette is strongest, I feel like, but they are still decent. Like, I could make it work, but I didn't feel like it gave me the depth or the color that I was searching for. So I added in Adams from this palette and blended with Ouroboros from the other palette, just created the perfect shade of green and greenish teal that I was searching for. So that's probably all the mattes that I used. I probably used the Rebirth, let's be honest. This pastel in my inner part. Probably used this shade Moss as well, because this is a great green. This is probably my favorite combo of all time. And nowadays I find myself reaching for this palette a lot because of the duochromes, obviously, and because of the texture of them, because the Nikki Tutorials palette has duochromes and multichromes also, but those are chunkier formulas, and this is so smooth. It's so smooth and sparkly. It is more like a shimmer than a metallic. So if you were to compare the formulas or the finishes, the Nikki Tutorials duochromes and multichromes are more like a metallic finish, but these are more like shimmers. And then technically the look that I'm wearing today is the fourth that you were going to see, because I purely used this palette today. I stuck with the pinks. Trust me, I tried not using the yellow. I tried, but I just didn't like it. So I mixed this baby pink with this one to get like a peachy inner corner shade to blend, and oh my god, it worked so well. And it did wonders blending this like outer corner situation, which is a mix of the purple decay and then this bright pink, which is called Goddess. And on my lower lash line I have this charcoal shimmer complete, and then River. On my lid, as I've said, I have Hela and then double-sided. It is deceiving seeing them on the pan because one is lighter than the other. At first when I saw Hela, I thought that it was going to be just a peachy orange shimmer, but it turned out to be so much more bright than that. So that's what I have in the center of my lid, because I pulled in double-sided at the front and then in my very inner corner. So that's something to keep in mind with this palette, that it might be deceiving because some of the shades are lighter or darker than they are in real life. Alright, I think that's all for the looks that I created with this palette and to their friends and companions. So let's jump into me swatching it. Alright, so the first palette that I will compare this to is my Made by Mitchell Feet on the Ground palette, which looks like this. The first shade is Limeade from Made by Mitchell and Fluorescence from the Hela. I think they look very similar. Only difference is that the Made by Mitchell formula is more sheer. So I would say Oden's Eye wins this round. The next is Mama's Garden and Venom, and that's a very similar comparison too. Like, they are pretty much the same tone of green, but again, I prefer the Oden's Eye formula because it's just more pigmented and impactful. Next is Clay Baby from the Made by Mitchell and Wolf. They are again pretty much the same. Wolf in particular is very similar to Mila from the Nikki Tutorials palette as well. They are just caramel browns, there's nothing really more to it. Next ones are A Mood and then Suit, so I really thought that they were going to be more similar than they actually are, so I'm happy to finally see some type of difference between the two shades. So Suit is clearly the darker one and it's clearly the more impactful as well. Then the last ones are Venom and Ouroboros. So Venom clearly is a teal and Ouroboros is a forest green, so they are just vastly different in that regard. So I would say in the quality of the mattes, they are pretty much on par with each other, like the two palettes that we are comparing today. Mitchell's shimmer formula is kind of a sheer type. In terms of finishes, they are in the same category. There's nothing really vastly different about them, and the tones are the same, but the Oden's Eye shimmers are more full of pigment. They are more impactful than Mitchell's. Alright, the next one is my It's Freaking Bats palette by Shroud and then the Hela. The first two are Handbook and Golden Bridge. I really thought that they were going to be the same shade because in pan they really did look like that, but I am happy to report that my It's Freaking Bats palette still has my favorite lime green shimmer of all time. It is still so much more lime than Golden Bridge, which has more of a golden undertone, so it pulls more yellow than green. In formulation they are similar, but I would say Shroud's formula is better than Oden's Eye. It's chunkier, like if you swatch there's so much more chunks in the shadow itself, but it has so much more impact. Alright, the next are Berry and Suit. So if we were to compare all the three purples that we talked about, it would be Mitchell, Oden's Eye, and then Shroud, because Berry is still darker than Suit. Next are Adams and Ouroboros, which is kind of the same as with the Venom shade from Made by Mitchell, because that clearly is more teal. Then the next one is exciting because it's Zero from the Shroud palette and River. In spite of being a purple base with teal-ish shimmers running through, they are vastly different because one is an eggplant and one is a periwinkle. So the last three are Trappa and then Underworld and Moss. I compared both of them to Trappa because remember when I said in pan they look different than applied on the eyes? This applies to all the greenish, grungy, mustardy yellows. It's very hard to differentiate between them just looking at them. Like, it's a very, very slight difference. Moss and Underworld are basically the same tone but not the same color. One is clearly yellow and the other is clearly green. And now that I look at it, I think Trappa is the perfect mix between them. It's just darker and more impactful. Alright, the last row is going to be me comparing some of my Beauty Pie palettes to the Oden's Eye one. The first shade that I pulled is Crystal from my Book of Magic, and it has a duochrome, and I wanted to compare it to River because again it's that same type of deal of having a purple base with teal running through it. But to my surprise, the Crystal shade from my Book of Magic is a brown base with teal running through, so they are again vastly different. In my first impressions video that I did of this palette, the Hela, I mentioned that at first glance the purple, this plum purple, does look brown in some lightings, so they are similar but not quite. Alright, and then the last three are comparisons with my Nikki Tutorials and the Hela. First is Aura and Hellfire. So this is the testimony of me saying it does look darker on the pan than it is on the eyes, because I really thought that they were going to be twins. Like in pan they looked pretty much the same, but one pulls so much more red than the other. Like Hellfire is like a very light peach. Then next one is Blend and Snap from the Nikki Tutorials one, and Goddess, which clearly is darker than Blend and Snap, and that came as a surprise too, because in pan they looked very similar. They are pretty much the same shade of pink, I would say, and they blend the same. The Nikki Tutorials palette's matte formula is pretty much on par with the Oden's eye one. Then the last one is Vla, and then Rebirth. To my surprise, they are different. Rebirth is so much lighter than Vla, and Vla actually is a neon, like it can be used as a neon if you build it up, and it's not as pastel as Rebirth. All in all, I am very pleased to own this palette, and I'm actually happy to report that this palette and the shades in it are unique enough to justify me having it and buying it, and it might be justified for you as well. Like I said, I think the pastels and the shimmers are the strong suit of this palette. All the shades I tried are really, really good. They build up nicely. The payoff is great. There's not much fallout, although I always do my eyes first and then my base. But wearing it throughout the day, it still doesn't really have too much fallout. That said, I still use a glitter glue under all my shimmers. They still need something to adhere to, like they are shimmers. But using glitter glue might elongate the longevity of them, like the wear time of them, rather than using just a simple eye base. So I think that's all that I wanted to say to this palette, and I still recommend you buying it because it is very good quality. With all that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it wasn't too long. At least I'm hoping I can edit it down to not be too long, and I hope that this information was useful to you. Do you have any suggestions as future videos using this palette, or maybe comparing it to other palettes? I will try to be more consistent with my uploads and with the content I will create on this channel, because I'm not leaving anytime soon, I promise. Please don't forget to like the video if you really liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more. Hit the bell to get notifications of all my future uploads. Leave me a comment down below how you liked it, all that good jazz. You can follow me on all my socials. I have 2 Instagram pages, a makeup and an art page. I've stopped taking commissions for a while now, so I'm not going to promote me doing that, but I do have a Redbubble shop, so if you'd like to own anything I created, I have some designs up for purchase. And if you'd like to view my online portfolio, you can also do that by going to ArtStation.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!